We're joined now by Dick Costolo, former CEO of Twitter. He's recently returned to the startup world and is currently the CEO and co-founder of Chorus, a new company aiming to disrupt personal fitness. What timing, Dick, to have you back on today?
I mean, literally 5 minutes before I got out of the cab in front of the...
Totally unplanned, right?
Totally unplanned.
So, Ned Siegel, is he a good choice?
I'm sure he's a high-quality person in the parlance of the day. I don't know Ned. Sorry, I was just riffing on the news story. It was funny to me when I thought of it. I don't know him. You know, as you know, and as I've said many times, I have a lot of confidence in the team over there. Anthony and Jack and Vidya and Leslie Berlin, the CMO. So I'm sure he's a great addition to the team.
We know Twitter had a strong quarter when it came to user growth, but they reported their first quarterly loss. We've seen this new strategy unfolding when it comes to live video partnerships. Do you expect any change in strategy with a new CFO? I mean,
I couldn't say. I'm not being inside the company at this point, but those guys are pretty focused and they've been pretty clear about what they're working on vis-a-vis live, and I would expect that to continue as long as they're promoting it the way they've been.
So what would you think a mandate of a new COO would be?
CFO. I think it's probably Anthony, you know, taking on more of a day-to-day operating role and really moving fully into the COO role, and obviously then need someone to backfill into the CFO role.
Let's talk about the Trump administration. Obviously, there's been a lot of noise, as we were just reporting. I'm curious, as somebody who started many, many companies over a decade and a half.
Many companies.
2 decades,
but let's just go with many.
What is it like starting a company under the Trump administration? Is it any different?
This feels like one of those questions we should have when we're walking along the pier. You know, Dick, tell us what it's like now for you. You know, to be perfectly honest, it's not that different when you're in the day-to-day trenches of running a startup. You know, you're focused on the hiring pipeline and trying to find the right people on the team, trying to get your bugs out of the beta and the performance of the beta better, and trying to understand the user dynamics of the beta for the kind of consumer stuff we're building. So I would say that, to be perfectly frank, on a day-to-day basis, it doesn't really affect the way we think about what we're doing.
Tech leaders largely came out vocally against Trump, though we haven't yet seen, you know, some of the results of the policies he has promised. We do know that it appears he plans to block these so-called startup visas, which are given to entrepreneurs who come in from foreign countries. How big a deal is this?
I think that's really unfortunate, and I think, to be, again, just sort of blunt about it, I think it's a sign that he's not really paying much of any attention to what the tech leaders are talking to him about, because I can assure you that they would be promoting that idea. It promotes job creation in the U.S. You want the best entrepreneurs in the world starting their companies and building these future big businesses here, and hiring people here, and not doing it elsewhere. And to the extent you can attract them here and enable them to build those companies here and thrive here with the great sort of access to capital and nourishing of entrepreneurship that we have here, the more of that, the better. So I think it's unfortunate and probably a sign that, you know, not having been in any of those discussions, that it's a little bit paying lip service to listening to tech leaders and not really doing it.
We've seen tech stocks take a bit of a hit the last couple weeks. They also took a hit today in the wake of another presidential email scandal. Putting on your former public company CEO hat, what would you be bracing for in the public markets?
Well, I have thought for a while that the markets have been underpricing risk with everything going on in the world, not just this, but things going on in Europe and elsewhere in the Middle East. And so I guess I would continue to be bracing for what I would have expected by now to be a lot more volatility. I mean, you know, volatility is almost at it has been at record lows recently, and I just, you know, just sort of looking at what's going on, would be surprised if that continues to be the case for an extended period of time.
How about in the private markets? What do you see happening?
Well, it's certainly been the case recently that these very, very late stage private market valuations of companies that are staying private for, you know, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years now end up being much higher than, or significantly higher than when those companies debut in the public markets. That's probably going to continue to be the case in the near term, meaning that you'll see companies go public in 18 and maybe early 19, whose late round private valuations were much, much higher than their initial public valuations. I don't see that changing anytime soon. So I see continued lots of money in the private markets chasing few deals, which drives up the prices. And when these things finally see the light of day in the retail markets, they, it sort of probably rightly turns out to be the case that they're not worth as much as their last private rounds were.
What's your outlook on Snap?
Well, let's see. I've said for many years, I think it's fair to say, and publicly, that I think Evan is maybe the best consumer product thinker out there in the digital space. He's innovated over and over and over again, first with his sort of second big product insight on Snap with Stories, and then Spectacles and the geo filters now that my son and all his friends use all the time. So I just think he's a remarkable consumer product thinker. The challenge for these kinds of companies the challenges include in the consumer advertising space, consumer digital advertising space. Facebook has just got, lots of the cards. They have volume, they have targeting, they have, they can just, their ability to deliver quality efficiently, hyper efficiently for advertisers is so great that it just makes competing in that space difficult if you don't have that kind of scale and the other advertising tools that they have at their disposal. So that's going to be the challenge for them. I think that Evan will continue to show interesting and maybe fascinating consumer insights that will probably continue to be copied by others. But they're going to have to try to figure out how to outflank somebody, these bigger players like Facebook, on the ad side.
That said, growth is slowing down. International growth is negligible. Facebook is copying features across all its platforms, Messenger, WhatsApp, Instagram, and basically or potentially blocking future growth in international markets. I mean, you had to contend with Facebook and Twitter. Can Snap overcome that?
It's a challenge. There's no question about it. The advantage that Evan has is he's a remarkable consumer product thinker. I mean, the fact that he launched Spectacles when he did in the wake of people sort of waving Google Glass aside.
But Spectacles, maybe they took off momentarily, and
just saying, as a consumer product and in the digital space, a consumer product innovator, he's launched a number of successful products. He's had a number of insights that have been wildly different than anything else out there. And if he's got the ability to continue to do that quickly and monetize on the heels of those innovations, that's great, and that's probably their best bet. You mentioned the big important challenge, and it's an extraordinary challenge, is if Facebook can just fast follow on all these things and then continue to present these opportunities as we've got the same thing they do, but with a bigger audience to advertisers, that's a very, very tough thing to compete against.
Silicon Valley has been rocked the last few weeks by revelations about sexual harassment. Uber CEO Travis Kalanick has resigned after a sexual harassment investigation. Several women have come forward about sexual harassment by VCs. Investors have been fired, funds have been closed, lawsuits have been filed. What is your take on the bro culture problem in Silicon Valley?
I think it's I don't mean to trivialize it. It's a problem, and I think it's probably actually maybe understated and underreported. It's probably way worse than we've seen so far. And I think that, again, just to be blunt about it, I think in a lot of cases, the investors in some of these venture firms are simply ignoring it and maybe paying lip service to it, but ignoring it and then funding some of these enterprises anyway. It's widely understood that some of these issues were things that had been said in the background, and yet new funds were raised and on and on and on. So I think that until the capital being committed, by these LPs to these venture funds starts to really take it seriously and invest in more directly in women who are running these funds and in maybe gender-specific funds or people of color funds, you're going to continue to see lip service paid to this because when push comes to shove, the money's flowing into these funds anyway, even when they've heard about some of these things.
We've seen a lot of long-winded apologies. Do you buy it?
I mean, you know, it's hard for me to comment on that stuff because, you know, I'm not in Frank in either of the shoes, both either the victims or the predators. So I don't know. It's weird when, you know, it's a pattern, it's a pattern, it's a pattern, it's a pattern, and now that something comes out, it's, oh gosh. So that is a bit, you know, you look askew at that a little bit.
Reid Hoffman is encouraging VCs to sign a decency pledge, talking about a third-party HR function that would oversee the relationship between VCs and entrepreneurs. Is that a realistic solution?
You know, I'll tell you, I just don't think that that's sufficient. It's like saying I mean, listen, I love Reid. I understand what he's trying to do. But the answers seem more dramatic to me. Why aren't people funding, you know, women-only GP, you know, funds where the GPs are all women? There are certainly plenty of funds where the GPs are all men, and I just don't see those things getting funded. And instead of saying to the people who are already in these guys-only partnerships, do you promise to do X, Y, Z? I'd like to see a lot more money flowing to, you know what? There are a lot of smart women in the Valley. A lot of them are in the venture business. Let's go enable a few of them to create their own fund and get after it. There are new funds launching all the time. These people are able to get these, you know, people are able to get funds raised with what I would even go as far as to say aren't records you would look at and say, yeah, I'm going to fund that new venture fund. So there are plenty of super qualified women out there, and I would like to see more of the LPs and institutional investors putting their money where their mouth is in the venture side.
Quickly, I know that you are very focused on hiring women at Chorus and at a smaller stage making sure that it's 50-50. What is your vision for this company?
It's a social fitness platform. Our vision for the company is that in the real world, the way people get healthy and live healthy lives is through social motivation and social accountability. And yet online, most fitness platforms are one-on-one. Here's a program for you. And then you go and do it and try to keep yourself motivated in isolation. Chorus is all about getting a team of people together to help each other stay motivated, to do what they want to do and do what they've committed to do and help each other be successful.
When's it coming out? It's in beta right now.
It's in beta right now, and we're working on the user dynamics of it. I have like 3 or 4 more things we really want to do, so I'd say late this fall.
All right. Dick Costolo, Chorus Fitness CEO, former CEO of Twitter. Always great to have you here on the show. Thanks so much.